This week, the Humane Society of the United States released its annual Horrible 100 report, listing the 100 worst puppy mills in America, with 20 of them in Ohio, putting this state as number 2 in the country. Attempts to crack down on puppy mills have been going on for years, both aimed at the puppy mills themselves, which are overwhelmingly located in Amish country in eastern Ohio, but also at the retailers who buy from puppy mills. But a big 2016 law included among many provisions a ban on local regulation of pet stores, which has become known as the Petland Law. A 2-page bill seeks to overturn that preemption. Representative Sarah Carruthers is the sole Republican sponsor of that bill.
Well, this legislation really isn't saying much about puppy mills. I tried to do that my first year. When I came in, I made the broad statement that I was going to get rid of all of the puppy mills because that was my mission coming in, and was met with complete, I met one of the men in charge of puppy mills. He came to my office almost immediately with his cohort, and I asked all the right questions because I grew up with show dogs and, you know, had the background, and he respected me as much as he was going to respect a woman, let's put it that way. But I find that it is very difficult. They regulate themselves, and it is in the ag area. And, you know, I trust our Director of Agriculture. Brian Baldridge is a good friend. I think he does what he can. It is a huge black eye for Ohio, huge black eye. But they rule with fear. It is an Amish community, and they threaten a lot of things. I'm being brutally honest about that.
There was a constitutional amendment that was proposed for the 2018 ballot that did not get to voters because of a compromise that resulted in a law that was supposed to do things like limit how many times a female dog could be bred, allow dogs to have space to move, food and water, medical exams. Is that law being followed?
From what I am told, yes. They offered me to come see. However, they offered me to come see on the caveat that I would let them know when I was coming.
That's not a surprise visit then.
No. I would prefer to go and see it, you know, when they didn't know. However, I think they're better. I will say I think that they are better than they have been. It's not changing the practices. It's not changing the fact that they're turning out an unreliable product, let's say.
And an expensive product to fix. I mean, the bills, not only the emotional
veteran
devastation,
bills,
but...
you know, the veterinarian bills are tremendous, and the heartache. I mean, I think that's, well, you can tell that's what's in, like my Lassie's law, 379, the heartache that you suffer, that families suffer, constantly having a sick animal. And that's, you know, business is their number one priority. So now in that bill, 443, which is the Petland bill, that I believe the representative that I work with mentioned that they were puppy mill dogs. I don't know that. I think that some of them might purchase from puppy mills. I have no proof of that. She may. I don't know. And I think stores can purchase from other vendors. That's fine. I think a way to fix that, and unfortunately we're getting close to the end of the GA, is a lemon law, much like we do for cars, where they would have to pay the veterinary bills.
Is that something that you would be considering doing?
I had considered that a prior GA, and now I am swamped with other bills. But I'm more than happy to hand that over to another representative to do, yes.
One of the questions that I think is often asked is everybody seems to be opposed to puppy mills. Nobody likes the terrible stories that come out of them. Why is this still the way it is in
Your
Ohio?
guess is as good as mine. And I think...
Is it the lobbying effort on behalf of some of these?
I think that there's
vendors and
definitely,
stores?
I think there's definitely a strong thing with that. And also, as I said, most of it is Amish, and there's a huge Amish country. And there's no doubt that it can impact voters.
I have to ask, is there a connection with, for instance, the lobbyist Mike Gonidakis, who works for, he lobbies for Petland. He's also the president of Ohio Right to Life. Is that a connection there?
With Petland, but not with the puppy mills, no. Not at all.
With the legislators, though?
Oh, I think so, but that would have nothing to do with the puppy mills, no. No, he would be against puppy mills. No.
Well, let me talk about Lassie's Law here. This is the one that requires road crews who are finding dogs and cats that have been hit by cars to scan them after picking them up and then notifying the pet's owner if there's a microchip found.
I'm very passionate about this bill. I really am.
How would this work in practicality?
Well, you know, road crews find dead animals on the road. You have dogs that run out and get hit by cars daily. Our dog, within the first week that we got her, she's alive, but she was dragged for a little while, had road burn and
Oh my
everything.
gosh.
Oh, it was terrible, but she survives everything. She's amazing. But if they find this animal, they have a scanner, and it's really such a low cost. We've priced it out. It can be as low as $30 to as high as $300, depending. They scan. If there is a chip, then they take the animal to an area that is cool, a clean environment, to wait for 24 hours, let the people know, let the owners know that they have the animal and they get to choose how they want to dispose of the animal, but just let them know that they have this animal. And I just think it's the kind and right thing to do.
Is it going to pass? You told my State House News Bureau colleague Joe Ingles that there isn't a lot of support to move it forward right now. And we are at the end of the General Assembly coming up in a couple of months.
I think there's no reason for it not to pass. But I'll be honest, animal bills, for some reason, even though people love animals, they don't get a lot of support. And for some reason also, they really are not a huge Republican issue, and I don't know why, because I don't have a friend in my party that isn't an animal lover. I don't know why. It's something that I'm always passionate about, so go figure.
And I was just going to ask you about that. When I think about some of the laws that have been proposed over the years, you've got a humane cosmetics law that would ban the sale, make Ohio the 13th state to ban the sale of cosmetics tested on animals.
Right.
You've got other Republicans who have proposed legislation on
Bill Coley.
Bill Coley,
did the
Senator
porch
Bill
that-
Coley, yep.
Yeah.
Laura Lanise, former state representative.
Absolutely, we did that.
Sharon Ray, representative from Medina, who has a bill that would provide tax credits to landlords with pet-friendly units. Why are these not moving forward?
Well, I think for some of us, we have other bills that matter. And honestly, there's not a lot of money in it, to be blunt. There's not a lot of money in it.
In protecting animals.
Yeah, there's not. But I think, you know, I'm on my last term, and it's a passion of mine. It's something I wanted to get done, and I'm at the point now where there are things I see that need to be changed. I would have done it my last term in 2 years anyway, so why not get it done now? But there are a lot of things that we see. Everybody comes into this position with different passions, as we all know. And you take those passions and you focus on those things immediately, and then you get sidetracked and you think, no, you know what, this is really important right now, or this is really important right now. And then you do those. And so now I'm looking at this as, you know what, let's get these finished too.
Well, let's talk about the Humane Cosmetics Bill.
Yes.
Again, Ohio would be the 13th state to ban the sale of cosmetics tested on animals. There are some who are going to say this is for the market to decide, that major cosmetics makers and even smaller ones that are coming up are advertising some products as being cruelty-free. Let people decide rather than the government deciding.
Right. And I would agree with that in many cases. However, most cosmetics these days are going to natural sources and things like that. The cosmetics that are using animal products and things like that are, for the most part, I find, coming from overseas. Not very many anymore are really being made in America. So it's sort of stopping your China products, your products from overseas that maybe are not safe. I find I use a lot of, and this is name dropping for Gucci, I use a lot of Gucci Westman products, and I love her products, but they're natural and they're better for your skin. I had actually told a colleague of yours that there is a test that they do on rats. Now, I personally hate rats, okay? I am not a fan of rats. But when you keep testing and you call it the death test, I think that's what they called it, and you keep testing something to find out how much of this is going to kill them, and you do it until they die, that's just sick to me. And I think this is something that I think legislators can get behind also, because let's face it, not many people like Fauci anymore, and look at what he did to beagles, right? This is just something that makes sense to me. I had an eyeliner that I didn't realize it worked great. It was fabulous. It lasted forever. But I noticed that my eyesight wasn't so great. And, but the eyeliner was perfect. The women's problems, right? But it came from China. Well, what do you think was in that? There were no listings of what the ingredients were. I could have gone blind if I'd kept using. Well, that immediately went out the door. So I think it just makes sense.
Are there any other pieces of legislation that you'd like to see in this area passed? For instance, Ohio does not have an anti-tethering law. There was an attempt to try to crack down on vicious dogs. There's no law banning declawing for cats. Some of these other things that humane advocates have argued for. Do you think that some of those?
I think some of those bear looking at. I work a great deal with my local sheriff, who is a huge animal lover, and we talk a lot about it. We just found a puppy that had been tied up in a bag. The stories are horrendous. Tied up in a bag, and the knot was so tight that people that found this bag with this puppy in it could not open it. They had to cut the bag open to get this poor baby out. I mean, there are some sick things happening in the world today.
I have to ask, you're a Republican. A big story in the last week was about the actions of fellow Republican Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota, who wrote in a new book that she shot a 14-month-old dog that her family had named Cricket, so it's assuming that it was a pet, saying it was untrainable and that she hated it, but that this is the kind of thing that happens on farms. So I got to ask you, what do you think of that story?
I thought it was the dumbest thing you could write in a book. I think her editor should have talked to her about it. I do think that happens on farms. I have known people that have had to shoot a pet. However, there are veterinarians that have euthanasia. It was stupid to write. I do know that there are people that have, on farms especially, in a very rural area, that have had to put down a horse or something like that. I've had to put down horses, euthanasia, not shooting. I can't imagine. I watch Yellowstone. There was a line that one of the characters, I don't know if you watch it, but Rip said, if I never have to shoot another horse, it'll be too soon. And I think I agree with that. I think we've come too far for that in a lot of areas. If you are so far from everything else, perhaps. But it was bad form, and I suppose she was trying to look strong. She is a very strong woman, but and to say you hate the dog, I mean, it was bad. It was just not something I would have ever.
She had been talked about as a possible running mate for Donald Trump.
Don't think so now. Don't think so now. I like her. I just think that was really bad form.
I got one more question. I also want to ask you about something you hinted at before. I want to ask you about your plans. You were a supporter of Speaker Jason Stephens. You lost your primary. What will you do next year going forward, and what do you think is going to happen with the Speaker's race?
Oh, well, that's a lot of questions there, Karen. That's a whole bunch in one. What will I do going forward? I'm going to take my time. I'm going to relax. My children are they're juniors now. They're going to be seniors. I'm going to enjoy their senior year with them, hopefully if they'll let me, because they're going to be so busy. I'm going to see what God has in his plans for me. I certainly never planned on doing this. I enjoyed every minute of it. There were some tough times for sure. Jason is still a friend. I've made some wonderful friends here, both in the House, in the Senate, and actually in the lobbies. I don't expect those to end, because friends to me are friends for life.
Would you want to come back at some point?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. I haven't thought about it. It was a really ugly race for me, with some really evildoers, as far as I'm concerned. As far as the Speaker's race, I couldn't guess what's going to happen. I know the parties that I don't want for Speaker. Let's put it that way. I think Jason's done a good job. People say, well, not enough has been passed, but I think you have to look at the quality instead of quantity. I mean, you could pass bills all day, and if they're crap bills, right, who cares? I think I've been in a House that passed a ton of legislation and was proud of that. I've been in a House that passed legislation that wasn't worth anything. Not so proud of that. Couldn't even tell you what we passed, to be honest. So I think this House, when you have a Speaker that's constantly looking behind his back to see who's going to stab him in the back next, what can you get done? I think if you just let a man do his job, you can pass a lot more. So I don't know, but I intend on enjoying life. I had a pretty good life before I came here. I think I'll have a pretty good life when I leave.
A bill on animal abuse named for longtime Cleveland TV meteorologist and animal activist Dick Goddard passed in the last session in 2022. Some updates to that law were added last year, including a ban on using gas chambers to euthanize pets.